introduce you to a path-breaking learning space, Stay Curious. Over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll explore what makes this online school stand out, who it's built for, and how it's reimagining education for the curious child. So let's dive in. Anand, before we get to know more about Stay Curious, I'd like to know the man behind Stay Curious. Tell us a bit about your background. You've worn many hats: engineer, educator, edtech founder. Just take us through your journey and why you built this.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it like pretty short. Like I was pretty curious even as a kid, loved physics, loved psychology, was never really very feeling like I was studying for exams kind of person. I really enjoyed learning. I did CS engineering from NIT Trichy. One of the
Yes.
places where I got a chance to actually reflect on education. Until then, I'm just learning, and till 12, there was just too much happening. But I got enough time, and I learned some cognitive science also, and I was also learning a little bit of AI. And back then, I could feel like we could redesign education much better. Like it was right from college actually, and but my ideas were a little naive back then. Even though I did CS engineering, it was naive, and AI had not reached anywhere near where it is today. But within a year and a half or so, I wanted to try this out, and so I started teaching physics in a physical classroom.
Hmm.
As like, hey, I don't want to be one of those people who comment about education but like don't really go teach. Did that for a couple of years, got really good feedback, made a bunch of YouTube videos and videos for
Hmm.
Byju's, multiple places, and they all did really well. So got some name as in like a good explainer of concepts. Then I got a bit more ambitious, and I don't know if you're aware. Then I joined Khan Academy as the head of content for India, where I
Hmm.
thought, okay, we're doing things on the side. We're still like a good explainer, but it's orange juice. The meal is happening in school, so we try to like work with schools across government schools, everywhere, to try and implement mastery learning, things like that. That took me
Hmm.
about 3 years to realize. You asked me, right? What that brought me to building this, which was my conclusion after that was it's much harder to change a old system than it
Hmm.
is to just try and build a new one.
True.
There are 17 pieces that I have to change at the same time, and I kind of like decided that I may not live long enough, and it's too slow. So that's when I quit Khan Academy, and with the blessings of Khan Academy people, like they all felt this would be a good idea to just build a school from scratch that implements learning science, project-based learning, and the idea was that. When you align the content to the teachers, to the curriculum, to the parents who come in, when everybody's on the same page, suddenly you unlock something that we couldn't do even in Khan Academy, where we would have a, get an hour. The teachers are some are on board, some are not. Like those kind of things can just go away. So that
Hmm.
started. That was Stay Curious. The idea was that we will build an entirely project-based school that solves some key problems that I thought would just never get solved in education. I'm happy to talk about it later, but that's how it started. And we started
Great.
after school, and then now we're a full school.
I was just
Yeah.
going to ask that. Yeah, you all did start off as I think, a year or so back, 2 years back, when I last, first time I spoke to you all.
As a full school, as a full school,
No, as an after school, after school.
that
You
was
all were
2020. That was 2020 actually, just before the
actually,
pandemic. Not even after the
yeah.
pandemic. That was actually before.
Okay, so around 2021 or 2-ish is when I probably first got in touch with you all. So how did that start, and how did that lead to Stay Curious as a school?
Yeah. The vision originally itself was to become a school eventually,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
we felt the model we have is that we build a lot of the content. We design the projects. I'm the instructor, so we build the instructional content. So it's very intensive. So we wanted to
Hmm.
start with one subject. And if
Hmm.
you just do one subject, then you're pretty much an after school to start with, right? So we had this
Hmm.
8-member pod with a coach, learning children learning subjects and really developing mastery. And we had to really get that model right. So we
Hmm.
started off as an after school program doing just programming. And then we
Hmm.
added science. Then we added like a little bit of social emotional learning, all being done after school. And then
Hmm.
we had built enough content to now provide it as a full school.
Ah,
Uh,
okay, so it
yeah,
was more of a pilot project to understand how this is going to happen, and then put all of it together to
exactly,
create a
exactly.
package. Ah, okay,
Correct.
great,
So
great.
even though that was the
Okay.
vision from day one, and we thought it'll take us longer, but with multiple things changing, like I thought I wouldn't be able to launch a school with just 8 kids in a
Hmm.
class. I thought that'd be too expensive. But
Hmm.
after school, I could try that out. But it turns out that, and I thought I had to figure out a way to get it to 25 kids kind of classroom, the same
Hmm.
model to work before I can launch a full school. But it
Hmm.
turned out that we could actually do this with 8, and it kind of works out. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so before I get to the actual program part, who else is part of the team? And, obviously, it is not just you, I'm sure.
Yeah. So back in 2014, right, long ago, I'd just been out of college. I convinced a few people to join Khan Academy when I moved to Khan Academy, Burgess when I was there. They all left and joined with me. So the head of product, Shankar, is a co-founder. Arun,
Hmm.
who is doing a lot of production of the content over there, joined as
Hmm.
well. And Ram, who was with me at Khan Academy, he was also the content head there. He
Hmm.
joined, and so four of us were able to like start this. Yeah,
Okay. And do you all have different roles, or it's just
yeah.
brainstorming and trying to figure out how you go
Uh,
about it?
Today, Ram heads all of the curriculum and learning, and that's kind of his expertise. Even though
Okay.
I'm also an educator and I participate like really
Hmm.
actively there, like I still teach over there.
Hmm.
Arun handles the admissions, talking to people, parents, like helping parents stay on top of this. And Shankar builds the entire product. We have a lot of product getting built at the back end and also the overall ops of the company.
Okay. So online school, it's an online school at the end of the day. There are other online schools as well. And with project-based learning, this is definitely different from, you know, online virtual classrooms where there is still the structure is probably similar to that of a school. Activities might be different or learning might be different. It could be content based. Stay curious, how is it designed differently with project based learning, especially when a project has to be done online? i
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand you all don't have a physical space,
yeah,
and mentors, how do they work? I mean, if you could give me a picture on how the program or how each project is built and what
yeah,
aspects would you be,
yeah.
I mean, I think parents would be more interested in knowing about that as well.
I think the best way to know about this is to first think about the problem, right? Hey, what is the problem?
Mm.
Whether
Mhm.
it's offline or online, the problem is that the schools today don't have sufficient focus on life skills to prepare children for the future. And then the method has to be practical, and like otherwise you can't teach these kind of skills, right? You can't like lecture about like design thinking or a lot of these. And why I say this is even the social interpersonal skills. Um, are hardly practiced in a structured setting with targeted feedback. And the third
Excellent.
problem that we see is that many children don't get like a curiosity driven, like, really, really amping that up independence and high agency kind of environment that they need. So, why I say
Mm.
this is if you ask, hey, how do I provide life skills? How do I make the teaching very practical? Even for the depth part of the concepts, like give deep intuition and give a curiosity driven, like really emotionally safe environment, you arrive at some decisions, and lots of evidence shows that a remote project based approach can be
Mm.
as effective or more effective for teaching even social skills, for teaching like projects, and does allow children to like come together in a room of eight. And so most of the time they're collaborating, but many times they're using digital collaboration tools. So the advantage to that is they're actually also learning some digital literacy without it having
Mm.
to be this side thing, right? So
Mm.
imagine you were asking, let's get a picture. Imagine they're joining a room like this, and then the
Mm.
problem starts, and then now they're going to FigJam, and then they're brainstorming. They're going to Notion and tracking their tasks, and they're going to some virtual like prototyping platform and building a prototype, sometimes physically on their table. But
Mm.
the collaboration is like reasonably facilitatable these days with remote work and everything. Lots of tools have been built for people to work together remotely. So
Mm.
the best way to think about this is imagine a group of kids are doing remote work,
Mm.
but with a lot of support from a coach, which you don't get in an office. And because the teams are small, they're usually working in like 2 member, 3 member teams. The class size itself is eight.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Maybe an example of a project would help, but we'll go into that if you think that would help. But this is
Yeah,
give you like some picture of yeah,
I was actually going to ask, that would be one of my
yeah,
questions to you, because
yeah,
I understand this as a homeschooling parent also. I think back in 2010, 12, I've come across for my own son, remote from Stanford. So there were courses that were available to us where they could attend it in a proper classroom from there. So remotely, I'm somebody who does believe as long as it is productive, it's purposeful, you can work remotely. But of course, many parents are not aware of this and how it is. So the question that comes up in regular parents mind is the most important person there is that adult who's a coach or the mentor. So how do you find those people to be able to guide this? Because it's a lot of facilitation. I absolutely loved the fact that you said, when you're doing a project, there's so many aspects which are not thought of in a regular school. Mostly it is the concept that is taught that day or the topic that is done that day, and these so-called life skills are done separately as a separate either value class or a moral
yeah.
science class. And these are very, I mean, unless you practice it, all of it, even the academics as well as these skill sets, it makes no sense to do that, right? So I love the fact that you're bringing together this as one project. And but the mentor or the coach needs to be really, really good to be able to facilitate this at all levels. I mean, a
Yeah,
homeschooling parent would definitely love this because that's what we do. So how does that, how do you choose who leads
the
this?
people. Yeah.
Hmm.
So one of the ways to look at Stay Curious is that we believed that the current education model won't change simply because the role of the teacher is defined in such a broad way that even if you triple the pay, get the best people on board, it's really hard for them to facilitate true evidence based learning because you're expecting them to lesson plan, explain the
Hmm.
concepts, assess the learning, do classroom management, do any other admin work that's put on their plate. So the main thing I learned was it is not that the money is the problem, it's that the way the role is defined is not sufficiently empathetic. And as a teacher, I could say, hey, what would I outsource to pre work? Like, so the curriculum team, I and Ram, and we all build the projects. We build the content for the projects. We build the instructional content, like how to teach that concept. So there's tremendous support. So take that out. Now, then what you have is how do you now engage the classroom in a way that the children feel psychologically safe and are able to collaborate really well? Second, how do you give targeted feedback to each child on,
Hmm.
hey, how can they get better both at their project or their skills or their like core knowledge? And third, how do you make sure that when they're doing the activity, they're doing the deep structure of the activity? Like, hey, it might look like, hey, they're discussing, but the purpose of that discussion could be to actively recall some ideas. So do you
Hmm.
understand? So we've really narrowly scoped it. And then we try to find folks who sometimes have a TFI background, sometimes some of them have an IB background. But
Hmm.
if I give you a larger picture though, these are people who, even at Khan Academy, we found there is like top 5% teachers swimming upstream in some many schools. And then
Hmm.
if you take them to a different place where their goals and our goals are aligned, they start swimming downstream. And
Hmm.
it's either them
Okay.
or it's
Hmm.
people who are teaching in informal settings that they would never teach in a school. They would never teach in a school because of all the issues in it. So these are
Yeah,
like
so
these
I've
educators
never,
who are,
I've never taught in a regular school. I would never fit in there at all. So yeah,
uh,
this might be a
we
right
actually do not
time.
hire people who've taught in a regular school for too long and did not hate it.
Yeah, yeah,
If it really
exactly.
worked for you, then you're probably not a good fit for us. We're pretty rad that way that we want
Right.
children to be like disobedient in the right way.
Hmm.
Chaotic project based learning is chaotic in the right way. And so
Yeah.
if somebody's been too long there and they don't see a problem, they don't fit with us very well. So we look for people who've taught pretty well informally and kind of like me in the sense like I've not really taught in a school, but I'm a reasonably good educator. So yeah, like me, yeah,
Yeah, so education is very different from teaching, is something that
yeah,
I also believe. And even I've never been able to work in a space that is very
yeah,
typical where I have to teach a concept. So I've worked in always different progressive spaces or alternative spaces. So I totally can relate to that. But
yeah.
yes,
Uh,
parents are
in
always
fact,
very, most
in fact,
parents
my
are
dream is to.
very.
I'm sorry, I interjected. In fact, my dream is to create this new profession called a learning coach and really popularize it, make it mainstream, and build like a coaching academy for it. To really like create the talent pool that will make such learning more available. And then eventually, hopefully, I mean, so many other professions have undergone this change, right? Like in certain areas, like a fitness trainer today has enjoys a lot more status than maybe like 10 years ago. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, if we can create these profession of coaches, learning
Mm.
coaches, who are like viable alternatives to like a traditional teacher, and then if we can create high status for them, I think that would be like my dream, one of my dreams come true. Yeah,
Yeah, so this does sound like a dream. So maybe this is the right time to give an example of
yeah,
how a program is, maybe with one project that has been done, easier for parents to relate to who've never heard of something like this, and this is probably the
yeah.
first time they are. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine that you want to learn some science and some geography and some math and financial literacy. Now, one of the things children challenge, like have as challenges, all these are thrown at them in a dry way. Like an example project that they do is, for example, like you have to set up this chocolate factory
Hmm.
and you have to now decide which locations are going to be good for it, why, and then there's a little bit of geography you're trying to like brainstorm and learn on your own for that. And then there is the question of just making the chocolate itself, where we go into a little kitchen exploration. There's a bunch of solubility and why hot chocolate is like more, there's more soluble there, and what does solubility even mean, and what is a chemical reaction, like all of that. And then you learn a bunch of all of this middle school example, and then you have to set your prices, design your menu card. There's a little bit of design thinking, a little bit of financial literacy, and like, hey, what is the cost of all the ingredients? And then, hey, how should you put the selling price? What's the margin there? A lot of this is taught very dryly. And by the way, I've done the dry teaching before I did this, so I have a clear comparison. So you would work on this, say, for about 2 to 3 weeks. And now all of these subjects that would have been covered in a different way are now covered by actually seeing where they apply. And there's evidence that when you see where it applies, then you learn it. And then finally, you submit this proposal of where you'll set it up. It's like almost like a pitch deck that you make at the end in this particular project, where, and then you ship all these thoughts that you have. And all of the feedback is on your process, not on just the product at the end. It's on how you did the whole thing, because there is a coach who's helping you through all these steps. How well you learn the
And
content, how well you put it together. Sorry?
is there a rubrics that checks on each of the skill sets that are required?
Correct. So every project has some content areas and what they call success skills slash competencies, educator jargon, which is to say, hey, this project, the content could be in this case the science and a little bit of the science concepts, the chemistry concepts, and some geography and some financial literacy. And the competencies would be something like how well you collaborated, how many ideas did you generate before picking one, creativity. So there'll typically be not more than a few here and not more than under five on both areas is what you will
That's a
pick. And then
perfect
there are
balance.
rubrics for those.
You don't
Yeah.
want too much. So there is, I mean, of course, some amount of content and topic concept building is required. Of course, children, even if they are in middle school, might not have the right information to even make decisions or give ideas. So is there an aspect where that part is taught in
Yeah, yeah.
context of this project, like you just said, right? That would be.
One of the common misconceptions I've at least seen, especially in IB, the way it's implemented in India, is they think that hey, teaching explicitly is like kind of like this bad, like not at all. So the way this goes is once they know the problem of the project, okay, I have to set up this chocolate factory. They brainstorm what all do they think they need to know. Hey, I need to know a lot of chemistry and so on. And after that, there is a learning phase, which part of it could even be direct instruction. Like direct instruction is quite valuable in education. So they might, for example, watch a video by me on a water solubility. It's perfectly valid. They might answer a short quiz on it. All of that's perfectly valid when they're doing the learning phase, and then they apply it. But they typically spiral through this. So
Yeah.
it
So
is many times needed, and sometimes the most exciting part of the project also.
Right. So that is pretty much the IB way actually. They do have sections on where the content also needs to be done.
Thought.
Okay, so
And yeah, exactly.
yeah. And one thing that stood out for me when I was speaking to you the other day, as well as your team member, is about the right fit. Indeed, also this is something that we believe that education is an individualistic choice, and what fits one might not fit another. So stay curious. Who are the parents and learners who truly resonate with what Stay Curious offers? What kind of learner or family is an ideal model for what you do, because obviously it is too extreme for some parents, or the larger number of parents, to think that okay, I'm just going to leave my baby to you and trust that you will be able to though a lot of them do want this, but they're just unsure. So what kind of families do you think would fit Stay Curious's ideology?
While what you say is correct that it may not be for everyone, we're not building it for like, hey, this is this alternate school that like, hey, if this doesn't work, if a traditional school doesn't work for you, that's not the intent with which it's built. The intent of it's built is that hey, we have learning science that tells us what's the most effective way to teach and effective education model. Now we are building that through a project-based model. All the things that we're doing essentially are just like, hey, what does learning science tell should be the best education model? And what is the blocker to building it in a traditional school? And so we're just building education's failing at the implementation layer. So we're just engineers and designers implementing it. So it is actually going to work for 80-90% of the people. But who does it particularly attract today? First are parents who are like pretty okay with, they're not optimizing, they're not afraid of like, hey, 3 marks here, 4 marks. That's not what they're optimizing for. They've already come to the level where they agree that, hey, the employers are looking for new skills now, and they look at what the employers are hiring for already today, not like 10 years from now, already today. And they look at K-12 and they see that, hey, those skills are not being met. And they believe that a little bit of marks here and there are, that's not what I'll optimize for. But I want my child to be future ready. So that's one clear set of parents who are like, hey, I want my child to be future ready. I don't think K-12 is doing that sufficiently. Even the progressive schools, they're kind of doing like, it's like a side dish. It's not being given. That's one group. And the other group of parents are like more child driven. Their child is actively calling out that they're pretty high agency children, high curious. Like that's like building for the past me. I definitely felt like not very. empowered in my school. I like my school, but I was a very good student. But yeah, so they see that their child's curiosity is being stifled.
Right.
Their creativity is like individuality is kind of being like stifled, and so they
Mm.
think that hey, the ROI or the trade off is totally worth it in this other direction. And so they are the ones who are like these are two big parents, and the third group would be parents who are already looking for an alternate school.
Mm.
They aren't happy with the traditional school. They're looking for maybe a school with a different kind of ethos. But then
Mm.
there isn't any
Mm.
nearby, or the promise is not being met implementation wise.
Mm.
So those are the ones
Mm.
who join us. Yeah.
So, another again interesting thing is a lot of what you just said about the project based learning uh, aligns to what the NEP 2020 is asking schools to do, or the education system. And of course, like you just said, the implementation is where it is. Even
Yeah.
spaces that probably claim it, they do it. It's not that they're lying, but they do it as probably silos, which is not how it should be working unless it comes together. So maybe even parents who are looking for something like that and who are hoping, for the education system to change, might not happen soon enough, but maybe those parents also could be attracted to what Stay Curious is doing, because it sounds very similar to what has been, the policy
You know,
says education
if
should be.
if I may add, when I was 27 or 26 age, I don't remember, I read the NEP and then I read the NCF, which was written in 2005, and that also had good ideas. And so I
Mm,
realized that I naively understood that it's the ideas are, we are kind of known for a long time what to do.
mm,
We just need to do it, is my opinion at least. We've known
mm.
for a while. I don't think there are new ideas, new visionaries. None of that's needed. We just need to build.
Yeah, it's
And a
very
lot of it is
similar.
failing at just the building
Yeah,
layer. Like, let's just
it's
build
very
it well.
similar.
Yeah.
It's very similar. So even in my 20s, I mean, I see a very similar path. In my 20s, I'd come across the NEP back then, 1986, and I found it very interesting. Very coincidentally, I've come into the education line, but yes, I can relate to what you're just saying. But there's
Yeah.
another very important question that many people ask, because today I don't know if it is because assessments are much more common in the cities, or earlier, due to whatever reason, it wasn't there. But does Stay Curious support learners with mild learning disabilities or difficulties, or those who are neurodivergent? Is Stay Curious equipped to help them?
So we don't have a very specialized special education team,
Mm,
but we've seen that children who are slightly, hey, maybe they have slight ADHD, things like that, which kind of make the traditional school unnecessarily hard for them. They've
mm,
thrived in our environment. They've thrived like better than otherwise. But
mm,
something's more severe. We actually talk to the children on a case by case basis. But we're not like a specialized special ed school. But
mm,
there have been children with specific areas,
mm.
neurodivergencies that find themselves more suitable in our environment.
And you're able to, based on a case to case, be able to support them if it fits into the model, because some of them of course need a lot more structure and repetition than what you're planning to do, but there are, like you said, quite a few of them for who that freedom with the right channelizing of their need will be much more so.
Yeah,
You
we
would
do a
be willing.
one-on-one to know whether we will be able to support them first. That's how any child gets in. They do a one-on-one with either their own coach who's going to work with them or with a coach who's available, and then we take a call on that case-by-case basis. So we're optimized for the kind of curious child who's like, like it's kind of a rigorous curriculum, but we see that a lot of these children can actually handle the rigorous curriculum with sufficient support.
Yeah, they can, as they grow, they are being equipped. I'm also somebody who believes that children and all individuals are born curious.
Absolutely.
We, like you said, stifle them because our program is limited. As I say, the more we have a goal which is content based, the more you limit their learning. There's so much more that they can learn when they're doing the same project. These 8 children that you're talking about would be learning so many different things at the same time, and you really
Yeah.
don't realize, because we keep asking them, what did you learn today? They've learned 100 things, but it's just so natural to them that they're not looking at it from the eye of, let me put this down. Oh, I learned about colors today, I learned about semiconductor. That's not how the brain works. And these
Yeah.
children learn a lot more. It's only about, maybe closer to board exam time, how do you put it down as in an answer format that is required. And I'm somebody who believes that they should not be limited, their curiosity, their
Yeah.
learning, uh, till at least 8th grade. You don't need to even stop that. Then it's only about the skill sets of how to put the exam put the answers down for an exam. So
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful. And anyway, we're running out of time. This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you, Anand, and your team for
Thank you,
taking
Sandhya.
us behind the scenes of Stay Curious. If you're a parent seeking meaning beyond marks, or a child who just doesn't fit into the mold, Stay Curious is definitely worth exploring. And you may check out their profile on eddeed.com. Thank you again. And as the name suggests, stay curious.
Thank you so much, Sandhya. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.